Hello, everybody. I am a serious man. As most of you probably already know, unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of months, the Supreme Court has officially overturned Roe v. Wade. And in doing so, it has ushered in the end of the democracy as we know it. Well, not really.
Serious man. He's a serious man. A serious man. A serious man.
As soon as the Supreme Court decision was announced, even before the Supreme Court officially declared that they had overturned Roe v. Wade and were returning the question of abortion back to the states, to the elected representatives of the people, social media and the mainstream news absolutely exploded with people crying and screaming and saying that it was the end of democracy. This really got me thinking. Made me realize how many people actually believe this. How many people don't even know what democracy is. Most people mistakenly believe that the United States is a democracy. I mean, we all go out and vote, or at least some of us do. We sign petitions, we sometimes get to vote on ballot initiatives, like whether or not to legalize weed, or raise taxes, or give money to puppies. That's democracy, right? Wrong. Unlike most, pretty much all Western democracies, the United States has something called the Bill of Rights. Now, you may have heard someone say that the United States was a constitutional republic rather than a democracy. Well, what that means is that in America, we have a list of explicit rights guaranteed by the Constitution, which even the majority cannot choose to take away. You see, in pure democracy, there essentially are no individual rights. If a majority of people, or at least the representatives, decide that they want to take away the freedom of the people to peacefully protest, say, or publish ideas that the government doesn't want them to, own and bear arms for their own defense or the defense of their families or neighbors, in a democracy, there is nothing to prevent the government, the people's representatives, or the people in mass as a group from violating the freedoms of its individuals. Now, if there is no explicit protection in the form of a constitution, one which is very difficult to change, there are some who really, really want to. Without the explicit legal protection, there's nothing to prevent the majority, the democracy, from stampeding over the rights of the minority. The ultimate minority being the individual. So what does all this have to do with Roe v. Wade? Well, in Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court actually stepped in and interfered with the democratic process. They decided that laws against abortion were a violation of the Fourth Amendment. The right to privacy, the right to protection from illegal searches and seizures. Essentially, they argued that a 22-week-old baby was a suitcase. Well, not one going through airport security, but you get the gist. So, the Supreme Court decided that abortion was a right protected by the Bill of Rights, and therefore, up to a point, some very vague definition of viability, that they never really quite clearly elaborated on, was legally protected from the democratic process. States could not pass laws against abortion beyond a particular point, even if the majority of people wanted them to. Now, that isn't democracy. That's the opposite of democracy. Well, that is the state, the courts being the third branch of government, deciding that abortion is, or was, a constitutionally protected right. Now, one could argue that Roe v. Wade was the constitutional republic, protecting the individual rights of a woman against the tyranny of the majority, the tyranny of democracy. So when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, returning the question of abortion to the states, they essentially determined that it was not a right explicitly protected by the Constitution, and that it was subject to democratic processes. In other words, they decided that abortion was an issue that should be decided by democracy. So if you believe that abortion is a right that should be protected, you have two options. Number one, you can petition your representatives to pass laws that guarantee a woman the freedom to kill her baby up to and including the moment of birth, which is already the case in several states. Or number two, which is much more difficult, you can try petitioning or praying for a constitutional amendment that explicitly declares abortion to be a right. It won't be democratic. I mean, amending the Constitution might be considered super democratic since it requires so much more than just a majority to pass. And if that concerns you, just be grateful that it's just as difficult for the other side to create an amendment declaring the constitutional rights of a sperm, a fertilized egg, or a fully formed and living human baby. Either way, the overturning of Roe v. Wade was not the end of the democracy, just another affirmation of it. Thank you for watching this video. If you like what I had to say, please like and subscribe. If you did not like what I had to say, I thank you for watching anyway. So goodbye, and until next time, stay free.